Hi, my name is Brenda Lee. It's what everyone calls me. I'm here today to talk about life and death and the hereafter. And I want to tell you a story. And I want you to know that story is absolutely factual and accurate and true. I have a mother, and she's very sick. She's been sick for 8 years. She'd had strokes, and it had destroyed vocal cords, and she has a feeding tube and trach, and she's been very ill. And since September, with a mishap with one of her doctors, concerning a medication called tramadol, she ended up on a ventilator. Now, she's been in many hospitals trying to help her. And, trying to get her off the vent and various things. Well, during this process, my mom had gone from one hospital to what they call an LTAC. And they were very nice, and they did a very good job. And they looked after her. When infections came, problems, because those things happen when you have the type of problems that my mother has. But after billing issues through Medicare and Medicaid, they have X amount of days, and my mother had exhausted her Medicare days under the LTAC section of Medicare. And then it proceeded to have to transfer her to another life care facility that was a skilled nursing facility. Well, my mother was there approximately 2 weeks at this care center. And she got a kidney infection. Now, I wasn't there during that time because I was fighting a nasty flu bug virus for several weeks and had to be in bed a lot. And I had a lot of fevers. But my husband was. And my mother complained with her kidneys and her stomach and her back hurting, and she didn't feel well. And my husband consistently told the nurse and the head nurses, and told them to call in the doctor so that they could, take some blood and, check her out and make sure that she was okay. Well, an entire week went by, and they didn't have a doctor in. And the doctor finally showed up on Friday and said he would order tests in a couple of days. Well, by then, the infection had gotten so severe that weekend she ended up with sepsis. And that means when it's in your blood. That's what sepsis means. It gets into your bloodstream. And then you go into septic shock. And there's dehydration. That also is an issue. Well, the weekend went by. I kept calling. I even called the doctor on Friday. And he didn't return my call. I didn't get to speak to my mother, although she can't speak. She has to have someone to speak for her. I couldn't get through to my mother, because I couldn't go there when I was still spiking fevers. Well, Monday morning, between 8:30 and 9 a.m., we got a call from the facility telling me that my mother's heart had stopped, and they had resuscitated her. Now, the funny thing about that situation is the fact that my mom was a DNR, which means do not resuscitate. But they resuscitated her anyway, and they sent her off to the hospital, where she continued to seize. And we were told that her heart had stopped for 10 minutes, and then she was either brain dead or brain damaged. So when she was in the ICU, I was so beside myself. I just couldn't bear the idea of my mother being trapped in her body and suffering anymore. Being a vegetable, she has suffered so much in 8 years. And the reason she suffered was because she was beaten by her boyfriend in West Virginia, because the police don't seem to know what domestic violence means. Well, anyway, I want you to know what I did. I prayed. I'm a Christian, and I prayed to God. I begged God. I prayed and told him, I'm not much, but take me. Please give my mom back her life. Give her some happiness. Please don't leave her trapped in her body, half alive and half dead. And I prayed and I prayed. And after hours of praying, and the nurse, my mom would move her head a little bit, and the nurse told me that it was involuntary and not to expect much. I just couldn't face that, and I couldn't grasp that anyone would want to make my mom suffer any more than she already has. So I prayed again, and I said to God, use my body as a conduit. Heal my mother. Please take me, whatever the price is, just please heal my mother. Don't let her be trapped in her body like this. I prayed and prayed, and I focused on her brain while I was praying, and I focused on her heart and her lungs and her organs and her blood vessels and the blood that flows in them, because I know that there are healing properties within the body, and God can use those to heal someone. So after I finished praying and I asked God to use me as a conduit, I touched my mother's hand. I held her hand. And then I put my hand on her leg. And I focused, I visualized the brain, the heart, the lungs, the blood vessels carrying the blood. And I kept focusing and praying for the blood to have the healing properties, to heal her so she would not be a vegetable. And that's the truth. The next day, I want all of you to know that my mom responded. She responded to the staff, to the nurses and things. She opened her eyes, she moved her arms, legs, things, and responded. But this is only the beginning of my story, because she spent a few days in the ICU, and then she was transferred, because she was on a vent, to what they call a step-down unit. And that's like an ICU, but it's just a step below ICU. And really what that comes down to in the facility we were in ICU, it's 1 to 2 patients per nurse. When you're in step-down, it's 2 to 3 patients per nurse. And they still sit outside the door or in the room, and they watch them. Now, my mom had a lot of problems, because when they resuscitated her, my mom's such a tiny little woman that it really tore up her chest. And apparently, from them pushing on her, they did something to the vertebrae in her back, and now her hands are numb. And then there's a sore on her spine, the middle of her back as well. And I think that was from the friction, maybe. I mean, I'm not like a doctor, but, it's just kind of common sense, She's also got a lump in her right side. Well, consistently, we're dealing with these issues, and she's got infections because she's got PICC lines and IVs and things. And those things can cause infections, believe it or not. And so they were having her on antibiotics and having to bump them up because she was still getting sepsis again. And there was big problems. But she was still hanging here in the world with us. But what's really most interesting about some of the things that I'm trying to tell you about, but this is what was happening day to day. And about the first week, which just happened on April 1st, my mom wrote the word, because she can't speak, okay? She wrote the word halo, H-A-L-O, on her notepad. And I said to my mom, halo, what do you mean halo? And she reached up and put a circle around the top of her head. And I said, oh, you mean like halo, like angel? And she smiled. And she shook her head, yes. And then she beamed and she looked at me. And she said, I God's angel. And that's what she wrote. I God's angel. And as the days went by, she wrote about her experience of dying and coming back. To see, the interesting thing about this is she had seizures, grand mal seizures, and then her heart stopped. So she didn't know that she had died. She had no idea that she had died as far as knowing what had happened to her medically. In fact, she wasn't even told till the 24th of April that she had even died, because everybody was so afraid she'd be really upset because she was a do not resuscitate. So the nurses were instructed not to tell her, the doctors, and definitely not me and my husband. And we were there 24/7, and everybody can verify that. She told me, and she wrote, that she went into a tunnel, and the tunnel went round and round and round. And then the next thing you know, she was on the road to Jericho. You see, my mom's Pentecostal, so her understanding of things and how to explain things are coming from her memory of what she recognizes as far as terrain and, trees and people and various things. Well, anyway, she wrote that she had gone in this tunnel, and it was dark, and it went round and round, and she then was dancing. And she was on the road to Jericho, and it was green, and it was really pretty, and it was a lot of fun. And then she spoke to God, and they had talked about her life, and about the cancer she'd had in the past, and various things. And she described to me, and to a chaplain, these details. Now later on, she even went as far as to describe to me that the other place is another world. It's a whole different world. And there's no other, just this other world. And she described the people to me that were there. And she said there were many people there. And she even described what they were wearing. And they were wearing white robes. And across the white robes was a T. From the right shoulder to the left, and then straight down the middle of the robe. Like a T or a cross. And that they were velvet. And above their heads, not on their heads, but around their heads, was a wreath, a halo. She said it was a wreath, because that was something she would know to explain to you. But I think that that's called a halo. And it didn't go on their heads. It went around their heads. And she told me it was a lot of fun there, and it was really pretty. And they rejoiced in the word, and they danced. It was beautiful. It was so beautiful to her that we had to try so hard for the next 3 weeks to keep her from wanting to end her life so she could go back. We had to keep telling her that that is not how you catch the train to go back there. You have to wait until God calls you again. Now, I don't know about all of you, and I've not been a big Bible thumper person. I believe in God, and I don't go to church every Sunday. But what I can tell you is I believe her, and the doctors believe her, and the chaplains believe her. Everybody believes what she said. And the really interesting thing about all this is she's talked about all this stuff before she was told that she died on the 24th of April. Or let me stand corrected. We actually told her on the 24th. She died on the 1st of April and then came back. Now, I don't know about all of you. You know what that tells me? God let her see the other side, and very possibly took her to the other side, so she could come back and tell me and tell others, so that we could go out and we can spread the word, and we can let all of you know that are suffering in the world, whether you believe in your Muslim or Jewish or Catholic or Pentecostal, whatever your religious beliefs are. as long as your basis is God. That there is another side, and it's beautiful. And as long as we do what we're supposed to, what the manual, the Bible tells us, and we create this utopia on the earth, then we all get to go over there when our body dies. And we don't have to face death or birth ever again. We live for an eternity in happiness and love. And this is what I'm here to tell you about today. Now, in the Christian world, I know a lot of you believe that we are right around the corner from Armageddon, the apocalypse, and that may very well be true. I have my own personal beliefs. And it is foretold. But what I want all you Christians to know, all the people in the world to know, whatever your religion is, there is another side. And there's a tunnel, a portal. And as long as we do what's right, and we listen to what the manual or the Quran says, and I mean in a true sense, not any religious, what's the word I'm really looking for here? We don't want to be radical, I think is the term I want to use. We don't want anybody to be radical about it. Just the simple truth. And yes, everybody has a different version. But if you put all your versions together, then it makes a whole book. And that book is the manual. Each religious sector has parts of the Bible that they believe. If all of us come together and we put all those little pieces of that puzzle together and we listen to that manual and we carry out what that manual says, then we create a utopia on this earth. And our transition, when our bodies die, to the other side is going to be painless. And it's going to be beautiful. And that's the way it should be. Not what's happening in the world. Now, I believe my mother. And I'll tell you another story. I called my mother's sister. And she's known everything that's been transpiring with her sister, my mother. And she informs me that approximately about a week ago, there's a gentleman by the name of Dale Landis in Buchanan, West Virginia, and he's got cancer. And he got really sick at home. And the family showed up, and the friends, and everybody was wanting to see him, but he didn't want to speak to anyone. And do you know why? Because he did not want to be disturbed. And do you know why he didn't want to be disturbed? Because he wanted to listen to the angels sing. Because that's what he's hearing. The fabric between our world and heaven, or that other world, however you want to believe, is very thin now. And it's bleeding over. And both sides. And it is important for all of you to know that it is real. It's not a made-up story. It's just the facts. It's just the truth. Step by step, occurrence after occurrence, these things are just factual. And I'm a believer. And I'll tell you something else. My mother suffered a lot when she died and she went over there. And she came back and she's still suffering physically. Now, if she can do that, isn't it time? Isn't it time for all of us to stand up and fight? Stop the criminals. Stop the terrorists. Stop the corruption in our White Houses and, our palaces, whatever. Isn't it time for us to get rid of our dirty police and put in place good ones? Isn't it time for us to revamp our entire infrastructure and to create that utopia where all of God's children in the world coexist in harmony. This can be a beautiful world if we make it happen. And the only way we're going to make it happen is if we all stand up, because it is now time to fight. It is time to stand up and take back our world, take back our countries. And it is time for people to listen to what is happening around them, to see things for what they really are, just like what I'm seeing happen to my mother. And from what my aunt tells me happened to Mr. Landis. Now, I believe these people. God has brought my mother back to tell what's over there, to give us all hope. So what do we have to lose? Really? Can we not stand up and fight? There's a lot more of us than them. Let's stand up. Let's fight. Let's take our world back. Let's take our countries back. Let's stop hating each other. It's just so important for all of us. And it doesn't matter if you're Muslim or Jewish or Catholic or Christian or Pentecostal or any of those religions. There is a part of your religion that is a part of the puzzle that brings the whole picture together. And isn't it time for us to open the archives that the Catholic Church controls so that we learn our history and we learn the truth about who we are, what we are, how we were created? Because the Bible is the manual, but there's lots of proof out there to validate our history and our current circumstances and our futures. Now, as far as Muslim, I have no problem if you're Muslim. Now, I have a problem if you are a fanatic about it and you want to blow up my schools or our banks or our hospitals or, like the situation with the Boston Marathon and various other things. What really, terrorists, what do you think that's going to solve? Who are you hurting? Do you think our government gives a damn? Really? They don't care. We are just basically, what's the term the police always use? Pickle juice. Oh, pickle. We are casualties, basically. We don't matter. And I want you to stop blaming us. And I want everybody to stop hating us. Americans are just as big of victims as all of you. Not every American's corrupt. Not every American's dirty. There are Americans that are really nice people and they're honest and they're kind. And they're helpful. I want you to know that about Americans and spread the word. And I also want to say to the Muslim community, because I heard that it was the Muslims that stood up and turned in this terrorist people from Canada. Thank you so much. We are grateful to you. Because I think you too, in the Muslim communities, don't want to be tar and feathered and painted with the same brush as the radicals. And for all the other religions in the world, isn't it time? Are we not here now to a point where it's time for everyone to take their part of the religion and create that beautiful puzzle? Put it all together. And also, while we're on the subject of change and reality, what the world is about and the other world, heaven, why can we not change our world? Why can we not stand up and make those who are in power step down and in their place put good, honest people and have a watch group to protect those people and us so that we all can live in harmony. And we have to do that in all of our governments, all the world. And we have to stop hating each other. Just because we speak different languages and we look different and we worship a little bit different doesn't mean we have to hate. That is not what our God intended for us and for all of you. In the 6th day creation in the first earth age, in our Bible, it said God created the races. Now that doesn't mean Americans. That means Africans, Americans, Chinese, Japanese. You name it, he created it. And we're supposed to coexist on this earth together. And the only way we can do that is by effecting change. And that change does not need to take years. That change is now. And that's important. And you have nothing to lose. Believe me. My mother is gone and she's come back to tell us. And I'm sure there are many others in the world that have similar stories, that have died and have come back. She came back to tell us. And now I'm telling all of you. So let's use this knowledge. Because you know what? If they kill us, we're just going to go over there and have a wingding of a time. We're going to be happy. We're going to be beautiful. We're going to not be sick anymore. So what's it going to hurt? We don't need to be afraid anymore. I'm not. They can shoot me tomorrow. But you know what? They can stab me, poison me, whatever they may do to me for standing up. But it doesn't matter because I already know what I was told. And I already know what was expected of me. And I'm here today to tell you about it. And I'm going to continue to tell about what happened to my mother. And about Mr. Landis. And the others. Because by doing that, I'm helping you and I'm empowering you. So you don't have to have any fear of the unknown anymore. There is no reason to be afraid. Because it's really beautiful on the other side. And we don't have to suffer anymore. No more starvation. No more abuse. Freedom. Peace. Love. We all can have that. But we have to follow the manuals. And that doesn't mean everybody has to read the Bible, because they don't. Because the Quran has aspects of God and things in it. Judaism, Catholicism. As long as all of us take our parts of our Qurans and our Bibles and things, and we put our pieces of our puzzles together, then we create a very beautiful picture and a very beautiful world. I'm ready to fight. Are you? I'm ready to take our world back and create peace and love and harmony throughout the world. And respect. Because respect is a very key component to all the different countries. And let's cut out the liars and the crooks and the thieves. Let's toss their little, butts, bottoms, whatever you want to call it. Let's toss them out on their ear. Let's drive them out. Let's stop them. That's what I came here to talk to you about today. And everything that I'm telling you about with my mother is the honest to God's truth. And there are people to prove it. You don't have to take my word for it. You can listen to the chaplain who saw her, the doctors, the nurses. You just listen to the truth. And I know it's the truth. Because my mom didn't even know that she had died. till the 24th of April. And she died on the first day of April and was brought back. She has such clarity. It's amazing. It's so beautiful. Well, anyway, I don't speak all the languages in the world, but if you could translate this for me, I would be very grateful. Sorry. Sorry. And yes, I would be very thankful and very grateful to all of you in the world if you would translate what I have to say today so that I get my message out there and I let the world know what I have learned and what I have seen, what I have experienced in the last 35 days as far as concerning what happened to my mother. So, let's stand up and fight. Christians, it's time. God is calling you. He is sending you messages. It is time to stand up and to fight. It is time to take our world back. There are more of us than there are of them. Let's drive them out. Let's get them out of power. And let's not do it in a violent, bad way. So no bombings, no bad stuff. Just listen to what God says. If you're Muslim, we just pull it all together and we work together as a team. And let's throw this one world nation crap out the window. They have no right to merge us all together. God dispersed everyone amongst the earth. He did not connect us all with chains. We all have a right to live in our countries and worship and live in society the way we want, because we are free. We were not born with shackles on. We were not imprisoned when we were born. That first day when we were born, we were supposed to be free. We are not free. None of us. The churches and the government are controlling the masses. And now they've twisted it into some sick joke. And the real crooks are running us over. And, that is not what was intended. So, let's take care of the criminals. Let's take care of the corruption. And when I say take care of it, that means we stand up and we rally. We picket. We do peaceful demonstrations. But we mass together. We all stand together. We tell it on YouTube. We take pictures. Whatever we got to do. We do what we have to do to drive those that are corrupt and dirty out. We drive them out of their seats, out of their positions, and we revamp all of our infrastructures. We have to rebuild our world anyway because everybody is starving, everybody is suffering, and it's not going to get better. Isn't it obvious? They keep telling us stuff in the media, but yet you look down the street and people are losing their homes. You look down the street and people are starving. Just open your ears, eyes, see for yourself, and listen. And that will tell you the truth. And listen most of all, above all, listen to your heart. And don't listen with a heart that is full of hatred and anger. Get rid of it. Wake up in the morning and smile and say, you know what? The sky is so blue and it's so beautiful out there. And I'm going to go out and I'm going to say hi to the neighbors. Or I'm going to go down and get my favorite newspaper. Or have my tea. Or smoke my hookah. Whatever it is you do in your countries. And let's stop the hatred. Let's try to coexist on this planet in harmony. And let's not forget the message that my mother brought back from heaven or the beyond. Because she came back. As much as she suffered in 8 years, she has come back because God has sent a message back. So that I could tell you what happened. And I have done so today. Thank you very much for listening. I'm very grateful.